All right, 1 second here. All right, well, welcome everyone to this Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone to this Q&A. A few questions came in. One, actually, probably just get the one question. It's a pretty long question. A few follow-ups here. So the question that came in, was the following. Someone asked, the Talmud says, where the source, anyone wants to look it up. The source is Sota 49b, Sanhedrin 97a. The question is about the face of the generation. That the Gemara says, in the end of days, right before the Messiah comes, so the face of the generation is going to be like, or the face of the generation is going to be like the face of a dog. That's what the Gemara says. Now, the person asked, how far can we apply this to understanding we can't rely on rabbis today? Question is, how can we know which rabbis to follow, to listen to? Right? Because the Gemara says the face of the generation will be like the face of a dog. Face of the generation, simple explanation is leadership. It's going to be lack of leadership in the generation right before the Messiah comes. Right? So just want to, throw that in. It's going to be part of the answer. But so they're taking it further. Right? Taking it further, how can we rely on rabbis today? How do we know which ones to follow? Am I right to suddenly become distrustful of all very big, well-known Kiruv Rabbis, right? Rabbis that, are out there trying to bring the masses, back to tshuva, to repentance, have a lot of influence on YouTube or whatever, right? That's one question, right? That is definitely one question. Now, also, how can we be clear who's the rabbi we should trust and learn from, i.e. someone's got an agenda, right? Someone's got an agenda, i.e. the mixed multitude, right? I'll speak about the mixed multitude. Freemasons, others. Question is, do you feel this is the meaning of the passage? Or it shouldn't be applied in that way, right? Second part of the question. And I guess the next part of the question is, if we learn by those teachings are fully supported by Torah, but not always clear cuts, and you're learning Torah from them, how do you know what they say is correct? How do you know it's not really going against Torah, but it's a different interpretation? Right? So this is definitely a fully loaded question here. Right? And so let's analyze. Right? Let's analyze. First part of the question is, the face of the generation is like the face of a dog. Right? So the Gemara there says, again, Sanhedrin 97a, Sota 49b, it's talking about failed leadership. That the leadership of the generation is going to be like the face of a dog. Now, we're talking about the Messianic era, right before the Messiah comes. Generation before the Messiah comes, which we're talking about right now, right? And everyone would agree this is the generation we're living in, right? Very close to the coming of the Messiah. All things being equal, what does that have to do with it? What does it mean over here, lack of leadership? And why is it compared to the face of a dog? Because just like a dog runs ahead of its master, what does the dog do? Turns around to see if he's going in the right direction. Right? In other words, really following the master, but the dog's in front. Right? So too, the leaders of the world. Now you look at leaders, recent years or in the last number of years, no question, pretty sad state of affairs. Right? You get somebody everyone loved, Mr. Obama, everybody loved him, and it's just, they didn't want the Republicans anymore, whatever. Mr. Obama came up from nowhere, like humble. I say he was a state senator, whatever. He walked into the position. So someone said, oh, but what about, you got Clinton, these others, that came in. Yeah, they were governors. Whatever you want to say about that. Clinton was a governor. Bush was a governor. This guy came out of nowhere. Totally out of nowhere. You know what? Spoke a real good game. Spoke very articulately. I don't know if he's American or not, but it doesn't matter. He spoke very articulately. When he came out of nowhere. So what do we see? It's a sad state of affairs. I don't think anyone disagrees. We don't have real leaders today. Right? Nonetheless, it's already predicted. This is recorded. That's where the world is going. Right? We've seen that over the last 20 years, 30 years. Here's the last great, leader we had. Take someone, I don't know, like Churchill. Go that far back. Some people want to say Ronald Reagan. I don't know. It's been pretty bad. Pretty bad state of affairs. Without getting into all the nitty gritty of politics and all that. Right? So that'd be the simple answer. That generation today, certainly before the coming of the Messiah, leadership, disaster, all over. Disaster in Israel, disaster in Russia, disaster in America, other places. Leadership a disaster. Right? So that's a simple explanation. Now, this person took it further and asked, well, how far can we apply it? Now, I think they jumped a little bit because here you're talking about leaders of the generation, and then they compare it to rabbis to follow. Now, rabbis also leaders, right? No question. The issue is they're not, not heads of state, God forbid, right? But, they have leadership positions. That's true, and we know that every generation we get further away from Mount Sinai, we know it's a weaker generation. This generation, great rabbi certainly doesn't compare to the Chazon Ish. Torah giant of the last generation, Rav Yisrael, Rav Avram Shai Karlitz, blessed memory, Brisker Rav, right? Rav Yisrael Zev Soloveitchik, a blessed memory. I mean, many. Rav Moshe Feinstein, of blessed memory. I mean, they don't compare. When, rabbis today, the weaker generation. But you have, great rabbis in every generation. Okay, so now the question is, and it's not so easy to answer in different ways, but we'll do our best there. How can we know which rabbis to follow? Right? First of all, is it applicable? Would we say it's applicable to say, wow, the face of generations like the face of a dog? I would agree. I would agree today. There are rabbis that are afraid of their own shadow. That 100% I would agree. You got rabbis that suck up to their congregants. God forbid, to say anything people don't like. They want to, keep their job, obviously. Mori Rebbe, Arav Agon or Moshe Shlita should be well. told me a number of times, if a rabbi is a rabbi of a synagogue, and the synagogue's not trying to drive him out, then he's not doing his job right. Why? Because there are times rabbis got to take a stand. Got to be strong. And you can't, Torah's Torah. It doesn't change. So you can't be fickle. Can't be a wuss, as we say in Boston. Can't be a wuss. You got to stand up for what's right. Could cost you your job. Right? It's a great book. It's called Tales Out of a Shul. Rabbi Emanuel Feldman, and a lot of stories about what he went through. Starting when he was in Atlanta. Starting Atlanta from scratch. The community there from scratch. Pretty much. He had all kinds of issues there. And there were issues he was willing to lose his job for. A number of times. He's got a lot of interesting stories there. But the question here is that I would agree that, if a rabbi is like that, then he's turning his head backwards and forwards, so to speak, watching out what people are going to say, what people are going to think, worried about job security. That's not what you should be worried about. There are times it's going to come out strong. Maybe I'm popular. Okay. Right. But there are people out there, and we're going to flush this out. There are people out there that would say, yeah, person that's a great Shabbos. Don't worry about it. God loves you. God's going to take care of you. Yeah. Okay. You got to try and be better, but yeah, it's okay. It says it's okay. Torah doesn't say it's okay. Torah says you get death penalty. Torah says you get spiritually cut off. Whether you know something, you don't know something, whether you grew up as a potato farmer in Idaho, no offense to anyone who's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho, or in the sticks, or the boonies, as we would say in Boston, or the prairies, they would say in Canada. Right? So ignorance isn't bliss. You do something like that, you're out. Intermarry, you're out. Oh no, don't worry. God's going to support you. You'll still have a portion of the world to come. We're rubbish, the English would say. It doesn't mean you don't work with these type of people, and all that. But for goodness sakes, you can't say it's okay. Can't say these other things are okay. You gotta have a backbone, right? So you got rabbis out there very wishy-washy, very politically correct. Or sometimes they go to the other extreme. Not only they don't want to be politically correct, but they're out on the deep end, doing things no one should ever do, not in their right mind, like bringing a missionary to a synagogue to speak. Not going to rehash that. That nobody should ever do. Be in a place, in a panel or as part of a group with Reform conservative rabbis. Can't do that. Already great rabbis, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Yoshe Bir Soloveitchik, a blessed memory, Yaakov Kamenetsky, they all said it's forbidden. Right? So how can people do that? I don't have an answer. It's forbidden. Right? So, yeah, there are people you can't trust. How are we going to see how you can't trust them? Okay, we'll go further here. Right? In other words, should someone be distrustful of all very big, well-known Kiruv rabbis? Trying to bring Jews back. Got a huge following. Now, the question is, where does the distrust come? Where does it come from? Does distrust come from because they actually said things that are wrong? Right? Do they say things that are wrong, that are heretical? Do they say things that are controversial? Now, even if they say things that are controversial, doesn't mean it's wrong. Right? Definitely could be right. Right? The question is, should someone say it? It's a different issue. Now, there are certain things that if you're going to speak about very, very delicate topics, which is another topic that I'm not probably going to get to today, probably get to on Thursday. But if something delicate, you gotta wear kid gloves over here. You got to be very careful. Because even if what you say is true, now I'm not worried people take it out of context. People can do that. They'll splice it, they'll shred it, this, that. That's a different issue. But if a person says the truth and people can't handle it, I tell you, don't listen to that person. Doesn't mean it's not true. Could very well be true. But if they start saying things that aren't true, or let's say better, right? Things that aren't true, and they're verified not to be true, you don't listen to them, right? That is taking the Torah out of context and doing something shouldn't be done. Now, could be someone here asks, well, maybe a difference of opinion. Okay, that's another issue. Well, we'll cover that also. What if there's another opinion? What if there's other opinions? I'll give one example. I'll give a real juicy topic here, which we're not going to discussed it before. Is a Jew allowed to go on the Temple Mount? What's the problem going on the Temple Mount? If you don't know where to stand, spiritually you get cut off. Not worth the risk. Now, the vast majority of rabbinical authorities, let's make clear, the vast majority of rabbinical authorities hold you're not allowed to go up there. Period. You're not allowed to go up there. There are a number of reasons. Main reason is we're not sure where to go. We're not sure where to go. Some people may think they know where to go, but we're not sure where to go. You don't take a chance. When something is forbidden, you're going to get spiritually cut off. But there's another issue. Maybe we spoke about this last week or 2 weeks ago. There's another issue. You go up there, even if you hold it's permissible, even if you know what you're doing, what's the problem? By the Arabs, it's a declaration of war. Why is it a declaration of war? Because for them, it's a matter of religion. It doesn't matter, it's false religion, all that. For them, it's sacred. Sacred for them. Doesn't matter. Jerusalem not mentioned in the Quran and others. Doesn't matter. For them right now, it's sacred. So you go up there, what happens? You're going to cause them to riot. Even if you think it's right. Now, some people say, we have a right to go up there. You know why? Because we're going to show it's ours. Well, you don't think the Arabs know that? You don't think the Arabs don't think we think it's ours? But what's that going to do, as my Rebbe said? You're putting the Jewish people in Israel in danger. Because for them, it's a matter of religion. If it's a matter of religion, they'll fight every last one of them. Will fight to the death because it's religion. It's about religion. That puts the Jewish people in danger. So either you want to tell me it's not an issue to go up there, religiously speaking, because they know where to stamp or whatever, and it's not an issue about getting spiritually cut off. What's the issue? You're putting Jews in danger. I know most people are aware a number of years ago. Ariel Sharon, right before Rosh Hashanah, went up on the Temple Mount as prime minister. So what happened? That was the beginning of the second Intifada. Now, people will say the Arabs can riot for any number of reasons. You're right. They can riot for any number of reasons. It doesn't matter. You don't provoke them. We're not here to provoke them. That's not our job. That's forbidden. But not only that, you put Jews in danger. That's a whole other issue. It's not really a good example only because it's not like, okay, you can have half and half. Half think it's okay, half thinks it's forbidden. Here's like 99-1. The very, very small percentage of rabbis who say it's okay to go up there. The huge percentage says you don't do it. Again, for religious reasons. But it might be also for other reasons as well. That might not necessarily be a good example, but that's the example I'm going to use. So there are rabbis that use that. Okay, they have different opinions. Now, if the vast majority of the rabbis say you can't do it, Torah tells me, Exodus chapter 23, verse 2, what does the Torah tell me? Go after the majority for good. So the majority say you can't go up there, you can't go up there. Whether you think it's right or not, doesn't matter. You go according to the majority. But again, the other factor is you're putting Jews in danger. Right? So if somebody says something against Jewish law and they're wrong, it's not just, let's say, I'll give an example. Let's say it's a minority opinion. And that minority opinion, nobody holds of today. We don't do it. Right? The example I'll give is there's such a thing in Shemitah, sabbatical year. There's such a thing as what we call heta mechira. Heta mechira means that because there was no food, there were rabbis that allowed Jews, farmers, to sell their land to non-Jews, so technically it's not theirs. Non-Jews would work the land, and you could eat from the fruits, because there's no food. Right? So not everyone agreed with that, even in the time that psak, that halachic decision was done. Many still disagree with it. But today, since we're living in plethora of amount of food and fruits and vegetables and all that, that's not an issue. Now, if you tell me, well, there's still rabbis that hold by this, doesn't really apply today. Now, that doesn't make them a heretic. Let's make clear. That doesn't make them a heretic. At the same time, I would say, yeah, you're not going to listen to them on this case. It doesn't apply today. Right? So the vast majority of rabbinical authorities say, no, say it doesn't apply. So you can rely on it. Right? I'll give another example. Another example. You take the Falish Mora known as the Ethiopians. Right? One major rabbinical authority held you don't have to convert them. They have the status of being Jewish. Just about everybody else came out and said, no, they have to go through a conversion. It's very clear, marriage, divorce, they didn't have, according to Jewish law. Probably a lot of their kids are mamzerim, which is a major problem. Right? If you say they're Jewish without conversion, you got a major issue with that. But again, one major rabbinical authority said it's okay. And just about everyone else said no. Now, does that make that rabbinic authority, a heretic? Certainly not. Certainly not. Could you listen to him for other things? No reason why not. On this, I would say no, because the vast majority say no. Now, again, that doesn't make someone a heretic. Is he going to say, how do I know what to do and this and that? Okay, that's another issue we're going to hit. Right? But I'll deal with the first issue. Right? Very well known, rabbis out there doing outreach. A lot of influence. Right? What does it mean to be distrustful over here? Distrustful. If they say things that are, let's say, a little bit out there, controversial, but they have verification that it's true, doesn't make, why does that make them necessarily distrustful? Again, there'd be certain things I would be very, very careful about talking about in public. One of them being the Holocaust. Then you got to be very careful. Right? Because even if you say that's the reason, or this is a possible reason, this or that, people are going to get offended. A few Holocaust survivors you have left, someone hears that and say, yeah, 80% intermarriage in Germany at the time. True. A lot of assimilation, all these other things going on. True. Now, you're going to tell them that's the reason and that, and their parents, siblings, children all got murdered there. You're not going to say anything. It's true. No one's going to deny that. I'm not saying that's the reason. Could have been 100 other reasons. Is that a possible reason? Possible reason. The fact in Germany, where the Reform movement started and said, yeah, we're going to change the prayer book. We're not going to go back to Jerusalem, God forbid. We're going to take that out of the prayers. What are we going to do? We're going to say, we're going to go back to Berlin. We're happy being in here in Germany. Wow, don't you think that could have ticked God off also? That's why it happened there. Maybe. Potentially. Is that the reason? No. But you got to be very careful. This is, you're walking on eggshells. Now, it could be very true. And you can bring statistics like this and like that and the other thing. Okay. But that you got to be careful. You absolutely have to be careful. So controversy, that doesn't necessarily bother me. But the problem is, I address this in different ways. But the problem is you have to be able to be prepared to take what they say. In other words, if they give strong mussar, you listen to Rav Victor Miller, blessed memory. He's very strong. Makes other people look like a bunch of pansies. The way he talks, the way my Rebbe talks, the way Rav Brevda of blessed memory talks. Very, very strong. I wouldn't say everyone should listen to them. Why? Because people can't handle what they say. Sometimes. Some people can't handle what they say. Too strong. You listen to what my Rebbe says and what he writes. Very, very powerful. I wouldn't tell everyone to listen to him. Even ultra-Orthodox Jews don't want to listen to him because they think he's a little bit out there, a little bit of a fringe. Okay? So you don't listen to him. I'm not saying a person has to listen to them. But, the question is what they say. And if what they say, in other words, let's say, people are doing things that were not done in previous generations. It's like a whole new idea, bringing Jews back in a certain way. The way some people are doing it. Okay? I don't necessarily have an issue with it, but it's not for everybody. Now, even if they do it that way, does that make you distrustful? There's another issue that the person brings up, and whatever, we're going to hit it in a second. And that is, how can we be clear on who's a rabbi we should trust? Well, you have to see who they learn by. Rabbinic ordinations were something to a certain extent. I mean, you should watch my video I did on No Hide Nations a couple weeks ago about who's a rabbi and what rabbinic ordination really means. But you have to see who they learn by, who they ask their questions to, who they're connected to. And if anyone doesn't have anyone they're connected to, say it's my opinion. Or I have my rabbinic scholars, like I called someone out once, a number of years ago, this fraud. And I said, show everyone in the world, all over Facebook, show them who your rabbinic authority is. He goes, I have my rabbinic authority. I said, beautiful, show. Gave him a golden opportunity. And he punted. Not only did he punt, try to take me out, Rabbi Singer, Rabbi Skolbeck. Okay, we're all nothing. This person's like the greatest rabbi generation. Now he's doing dietetic stuff. Whatever you want. So I gave him a golden opportunity. He said, I have my rabbinic authority. And they don't produce. They don't show who they are. So that tells you something. It tells you something that they're fraudulent, that they don't have. I know someone else very much, involved in, Jewish outreach and working with converts and this and that, many, many years. Got a resume, yay long. What's missing on the resume? One very simple thing. Who's their rabbinic authority? Doesn't say. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have a rabbinic authority, but it's not there. Definitely not there. Now, I made clear, everyone knows mine is, he'll still vouch for me, I think. I hope. Right? We're still pretty tight. Right? That's foremost. If someone doesn't do that, and they first of all, I want to see where they learned, as well. Respectable place, whatever. But who do they learn by? Who do they go ask their questions to now? Or who do they ask questions to, in the past? Well, that's a major thing. And it could be, even if they did ask them questions, could be they veered off the path. Can also happen. Right? So the question is, how can we be clear who's the rabbi who to trust the word from? Right? So I would say you can't, it's hard to figure out on your own. You'd have to ask whoever your rabbi is or whatever, ask them, is this person good to listen to? Are they not good to listen to? They'll know. They'll have their own slant. Right? On why or why not. Right? But if they say things that, are heretical, yeah, then for sure, you're not going to listen to them because how do you know what else they said is true? You don't know. And there's a good chance that they said one thing wrong, they probably said a lot of things wrong. Now, it doesn't mean we're perfect, doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. So it doesn't mean that. But at the same time, another factor is how do they appear to others? How do they appear to others? You know, if someone disagrees with them, they just call them out. They say they don't know how to learn. When someone told me, oh, he doesn't know how to learn. He doesn't know this. Really? Right? So that I would take offense to. Am I the world's greatest scholar? No. Right? But, you know, if you've worked very hard for like 30 years, day in and day out, you know, that's kind of a little bit, you know, that's more than a low blow. Right? So that I wouldn't take sitting down. Even if the person's the front. Because credentials are worth something. Effort is worth something. You say it's a waste of time. Why call them out? You're right. It's a waste of time. But to me, that's well below the belt. You want to say I'm wrong? Got other sources to back it up? Okay. You know. And if I hold something that my Rabbi holds and no one else holds that, I'll say that. You don't have to believe everything he says. Go like everything he says. You know, most things I do. And I've asked them 25 years worth of questions. Publish them one day. People can tell me I'm going to write all these stories and publish these things. True. You know, find time to do it. Right? But at the same time, okay, so that's another issue. Yeah, what if you follow somebody? You know, I'm not going to say they're extreme per se. What if they hold something no one else holds? So now you got your rep. He told you this is what you do. Other people don't do it. Now it depends what it is also. You know, you can't just, you know, say, oh, you know, he can does a great job. It's because of this, that, no one else holds that. Okay, there are other issues. Right? But in general, you know, you ask someone a question, you ask them the majority of their questions, they tell you this is what you got to do. And either most people don't do it. I'll give an example. That's my Rebbe when I was in America. And I asked them, I said, the Vilna Gaon, who my Rebbe is an 8th generation descendant through his mother, he held that on the last day of Sukkot, which is Shmini Atzeres, you know, before Simchas Torah in America, the Vilna Gaon held you out to sleep in the Sukkot. So I asked him, you know, what did he do when he was in South Africa? He said he slept in the Sukkah when he could. If it was the 8th day was on, the 8th day, Shmini Atzeres. He would sleep in the Sukkah. So I said, if you're a student of an 8th generation descendant of the Vilna Gaon, he goes, yeah, you can also sleep in the Sukkah. Now, people in America said, nobody sleeps in the Sukkah on the 8th day. Right? On Shmini Atzeres. Says, nobody does that. This one held not that way. This one held that not that way. So I said, my Rebbe holds different. Now, 1 out of the 3 years I was there, I was able to do it. Because the other 2 years, it rained. I couldn't sleep in the Sukkah that day. You know, people say, but that's not the custom here. I said, fine. I'm not from here. You know, my Rebbe told me it's what I can do. That's what I should do. And that's it. Now, is that going to create such a major, you know, disagreement in the Jewish people? No. Doesn't make me a heretic. Certainly not. Now, again, people will say, well, not everyone holds that, right? I don't need everyone to hold it. He holds it. And he told me I should do it. Right? So, you know, I would say first criteria is, you know, for someone to learn under, I mentioned this also, that the Gemara in Chagiga, I think 15a or 15b, says that you learn under a rabbi is going to be someone who to you is like an angel. Now, being an angel does not mean you're perfect. Doesn't mean you're perfect, but you have to look at them like an angel. If you don't look like it, if they're not like an angel to you, then you can't learn by them. You know, if they have really seriously bad character traits, you also can't learn by them. One of my rabbis learned under someone, he said a Talmudic genius, absolute Talmudic genius. Character traits were so bad, he said he didn't last by him 2 weeks. Derech Eretz Kidma Torah. Derech Eretz proper character traits even comes before Torah. So how can someone learn Torah and have bad character traits? You'll say we're all work in progress. You're right, but you're held to a higher standard here. You know, and if someone calls you out and calls your names and this and that, and they claim it's my way, the highway, yeah, that's bad. Wouldn't trust a word they say. Right? Again, does it mean the rabbi's perfect? No, it doesn't mean that. Doesn't mean that. So you have to see how they act. how they interact with others. Now, a lot of people see people online. They don't necessarily see, they don't necessarily see them in person. But you can tell. You should be able to tell online in different ways. If a person's not sure, you should ask someone who knows. You're right. Someone here says, right, it's part of the same question. Some may have another agenda. Maybe they're part of the Erev, the mixed multitude, this, that. Yeah. You can have rabbis part of the mixed multitude. You say, how can that be? Because they're krum. What does krum mean? They're frauds. They have their own agenda. Now, deep down, they may themselves believe they're doing the right thing and they're doing it for the sake of heaven. But the reality is they have an agenda. So that's what I'd say on that. So then the question was, okay, is that what I think? Should we apply the face of the dog, the face of the generation? We're talking about rabbis, not necessarily. We're talking about leaders. And there are a lot of leaders out there, a bunch of wusses. They're not leaders. They're not real leaders. Again, are rabbis the same as they were previous generations? No. But you have, rabbis like my Rebbe and others that are strong. Don't sit back for nothing. Got big shoulders. Don't take nothing from anybody. They say exactly what the Torah says. You don't like it. What my Rebbe would say that everyone loves, go eat kugel. You don't like it. Too bad. That's what the Torah says. You can't do it. Whatever. So not everyone likes that. Okay? Are there people out there that may speak really strong that maybe people get offended by that shouldn't listen to? Yeah. I wouldn't tell people to listen to certain people if they can't handle what they say. Right? So again, leadership and Torah leadership, would I say it's the exact same thing? No, not necessarily. Talking about, leaders, leaders in the world. Not necessarily, we're not necessarily talking about Torah leaders. Before I get to the follow-up question, the other thing it's not easy, when you listen to someone speak, that their teachings may fully be supported by Torah. Okay. Right? That's true, and it's not always clear cuts. Yeah. So I've heard some people speak, and they'll say, this is the halacha, this is the way it is. And the reality is they're saying that's the way they hold. But the reality is there's a difference of opinion. I've heard this a few times. That doesn't make the person a heretic. They're explaining, this is halacha night and day. All right, black and white. That's the halacha. Not true. It's like saying, this is so clear cut, no one disagrees. It's not true. It's totally not true. You'll hear, let's say, about sheitos, women wearing wigs, right? Sephardim Pasken, right? Sephardic rabbis will say, no, looks like hair, they can't wear hair. Right? Forget about idolatry, whether it comes from India or not, different issue. They'll say you can't wear hair, period. You have to wear a beret, a scarf, whatever it is. But hair has to be covered. It can't be covered with the wig. Right? There are plenty of Ashkenazi rabbis say it's okay. As long as it's, it doesn't go past the shoulders. As long as it's modest. Everybody agrees. Everybody and their mother agrees that you can't wear sheitos. Not true. Now I'll tell you a story. How far this goes. When my Rebbe went on the Eid Charedis, he became the what they call the vice president, Sagan Nasi, the Eid Charedis, before he became the head of the Beis Din. So the rabbis there, their wives didn't wear sheitos. Many of them Hasidish, their wives didn't wear sheitos. A lot of them. So his wife was willing to take her sheitel off in order for him to join. But she also wore a sheitel. She also wore a wig. So someone tells me, for a number of people says, I bet his daughters and granddaughters and whatever, they don't wear wigs. I said, of course they do. He doesn't hold it's forbidden. He for sure doesn't hold it's forbidden. What he holds is forbidden is that they're too long. That's not modest. Rabbi Yashiv held that, others held that. So you say, well, things are not always clear cut. I would agree. Everyone in the Sephardic world is going to hold you can't wear a wig. And maybe there'll be some in the Ashkenazi world also say that. And maybe there are a lot of them. Is that clear cut? No. Why do I say it's not clear cut? Because you got plenty of Torah giants out there say it's okay. Now, what's the problem? Very, very simple problem. Someone's going to tell you everybody holds it's forbidden. That's not true. That's misleading. And that's what the question is here. Right? They say, well, it's not always clear cut. Right? So a person has to say, if they're going to be intellectually honest, they have to say, this is the majority opinion. And some hold like this. Okay. Now, if it's 99 against 1, you can say, yeah, it's pretty clear cut. But if there are other rabbinical authorities hold that, you can't necessarily say that. You can say the difference of opinion is what we hold. Now, that certainly could be true. Could very well be true. But you have to present it in a way that that's the case. Otherwise, it's misleading. So again, I can tell you, a few times I heard certain things, and a rabbi gets up there and he says, this is clear, blah, 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 blah. And it's not. It could be the end thing, maybe. The majority going to hold this, that, whatever. But if they're saying it's clear cut and like there's no other opinion, that might not be true. That for sure may not be true. It may be true. But I've heard a number of times that's not true. Right? And whatever the cases were, they weren't true. But the person made it seem that's the case. That's misleading. Do they always do that? No. I'm not saying they always do it, but yeah. Right? But the person there points out, but that's not always clear cut. Okay. Not always clear cut, I would agree. Right? So person here says, well, I'm not in a position to identify if it's true or not. So if you have a question, ask somebody. Ask somebody who might be in the know. And ask if this is true or not true. I get questions like that also. I heard this rabbi say like this and like this. Is it true? It's a difference of opinion. Is it, whatever? And I'll say either yes or no, depending on what the issue is. Right? So is there intention to misguide? No. Could they misguide? They could. They could misrepresent something. Even if it comes out, that's what the halacha is. Let's say that's what the halacha is. But in the end, there are differing opinions. Now, if they say like this is clear cut or whatever, that's not true. That is misguiding. The case of wigs is a very good example. There are a lot of people saying it's forbidden. True. Even Ashkenazim. True. I'm going across the board. Not everybody. Not all Torah giants hold it's forbidden. Rabbi holds it's permissible. Rabbi Yashiv holds it's permissible. As long as they're modest. You want to take other rabbanim and knock them out. That's going to be a little bit hard to do because they're the cream of the crop. So to say everybody holds that and these two are worth nothing, no, that you're not going to say, right? And they wouldn't say that either. But what they say is, everyone holds this, and whatever, and even if there are a few dissenting opinions, even if Rav Sturmach holds, it's okay. Even if Rav Eliashiv, of blessed memory, holds, it's okay. Everyone else says forbidden. Even if I would say that's true, right? You said you got to go according to the majority, right? But if you have a significant minority here, there's not just one person here. There are a number of Torah giants hold it's okay, as long as it's, as long as they're modest. So that's misrepresentation. Everyone holds it. It's all idolatry. It's all this. It's all that. Idolatry, again, a different issue. That's been a whole different discussion. But to say everyone holds it's forbidden, it's not true. And I had people tell me this, and I laughed. They said, I bet your Rebbe holds like this and like this. I said, it's not true. Totally not true. His wife wore a wig. His daughter-in-law wore wigs. They still do. As long as they're not from India. Right? They get, human hair from somewhere else. Granddaughters married, wear wigs. Oh, I bet that, I tell people all the time, don't make assumptions. You make assumptions, you know what happens when you make assumptions. I've heard many people say certain things, in the name of my Rebbe, it's a joke. They don't know. If I would tell certain leniencies that he told me personally, people would flip. You think, oh, he's always stringent. No, he calls it the way he calls it. Calls it the way he sees it. He pulled out a few rabbits out of his hat. Different things I asked him. People would flip. Their beard would go like Yosemite Sam. Flip. They'd say, somebody like that said it. I heard it with my own ears. Right? So, people sometimes make wide-ranging statements that aren't true. And you shouldn't. Verify it before you open your mouth. Okay, so that's what I would say to that. Now, there's a follow-up question. And there's also pretty important to deal with. I don't know if we're going to deal with all this now, but we'll see. Some of them teach a lot of conspiracy theories. Some say stay away from it. But the vaccine, we're not going to speak about that. About being abusive to others, things that contradict things. Some concentrate on Gehenna. Yeah, I spoke about that. Some say the world is flat, whatever. It's a minefield. Okay. People think, you ask a rabbi a question, about business. What do they know about business? What do they know about business? Well, guess what? The laws of damages, the number of tractates speak about business practice. Then how does the person become wise learning this? Couldn't they learn about business? Plenty of rabbis made good money because they had good business sense. I'm not saying all of them. Right? But a person would never say, go to a rabbi for business advice. People would think you're crazy. It's like going to a witch doctor. That's what they would say. Or go to them for medical advice. You say, what do they know about medical advice? First thing they'll say is go to a doctor. What does the doctor say? And now you're going to someone with expertise in everything, and you ask them, this is what the doctor said, what should I do? Now, people are going to think that's crazy. Why? Why are you not listening to a doctor? You're taking what the doctor said, and you're getting other advice. Now, does that mean the rabbi knows a lot about medicine? Plenty that do. Plenty that do. That, they ask doctors different things and this and that. And based on that, they have a sixth sense. We're talking about giants here. We're not talking about small fry. They have another sense altogether of how to look at things. It's called divine inspiration. Ruach HaKodesh, which is the lowest form of prophecy that some have. And they're given information that they really shouldn't have. Right? He's got unbelievable encyclopedic knowledge about medicine. Never read a medical book. Not that I know of. I never found, medical library in his bathroom. And I asked him once, I said, questioned him. I said, where'd you get this knowledge from? He said, either you got a great secular knowledge that you're not telling anyone. We got an unbelievable, library in the bathroom that no one's ever found. I got a little bit of smirk out of him when I said that. But where does he have this knowledge? End of life issues. Doctors all over the world, in the summertime, come ask all these great rabbis these questions. A world-class expert. End of life issues. Where do you get the information from? Torah. It has to be a genius also, that helps. But, you'd say, hey, go to a rabbi for end of life issues. He knows the Torah backwards and forwards. He knows the Gemara backwards and forwards. So he knows. He's up to date with what's going on in the world. And people think that's nuts. They can think what they want. Right? But, certain things, yeah. We got to talk about, vaccines. You have rabbis on both sides. Some rabbis say never put anything in your body, never improve it, never this, never that. You don't know what it's going to do. Others say it's prevention. You're saving lives, saving your own life. You're right. So what to listen to? That's all, the whole thing, the whole controversy. Some rabbis said, 100%, you have to guard yourself on it. Take the vaccine. Others said don't put that poison in your body. Yeah, there are contradictions. So how do you come up with these contradictions? It's a good question. Where they're getting the information from, how they analyzing the information, different things. But if they're saying like the world is flat, you can't say that. You can't contradict what's out there. If it's not if the Gemara would say the world is flat, right? And this gets a whole nother discussion I don't want to get into, right? At least not at the moment. The Gemara would say the world is flat, and we know the world isn't, right? So that'd be a bad example. There are certain things that the Gemara says, if you have this ailment, that ailment, this is what you do. But why don't some of these things work? Because it could be the nature of the plant or whatever changed, possibly. Or it only had an effect back then, it doesn't have the same effect today for different reasons. Right? That's not a contradiction. There are different ways to answer up. Right? But you cannot, a rabbi cannot come out and contradict necessarily what's out there. Science, to answer up certain things in science, yeah, that might be an issue. And I'm not saying science is right. Science against the Torah, there's a long discussion about that. Seemingly things in the Torah that contradict science. Different things that let's say the Talmud says about, let's say, there's a whole question about certain lice that regenerate, in a dumb heap or something like that. And you say, well, today it doesn't happen, whatever. There are different answers. Doesn't mean it's like, come out against science and say, okay, science is wrong. It depends what it is. Some things may have changed today. The Gemara, the Mishnah says there are 18 different things that make an animal a treifa. That make it blemished. Right? It's got a hole in the heart, it's got a hole in the brain, different things. It means the animal's not going to live more than 18 months, more than 12 months. Now, could be according to science today, the animal could live longer than that. Right? So what do you do with that? We don't go away from what the rabbis teach us. Right? But that's a whole separate discussion. Right? So here, someone will say, yeah, it's a minefield. You got to be careful who you listen to. Now, I spoke last week. Too much fear, I think, is bad. You're going to concentrate on Gehenna and fear and this. Yeah, I think that's bad. I think you need fear. Fear is the beginning of everything. Fear is not going to lead to love of God. Love of God will lead to fear. Right? So that I spoke about. Now, the follow-up to the follow-up is the last part of this question. I'll take other questions. I just want to finish this. And that is, many of the Kiruv Rabbis, wonderful resource, definitely age of learning, speak a lot in truth. We have to remember they're not an authority. Very knowledgeable, charismatic. This is very important to know. There are Kiruv Rabbis out there that know a lot. Make no mistake, they know a lot. There are Kiruv Rabbis out there don't know that much. When it comes to Jewish law. Some know more, some know less. Right? But the bottom line is they're not a rabbinic authority. That's what people have to remember. If they're telling you things that are explicit in the Torah, explicit in the Shulchan Aruch, in the code of Jewish law, according to what the Mishnah Berurah says, and different opinions and whatever, okay, right? But if they're not an authority, you got to be careful what they say when it comes to Jewish law. That is very true. Depends what their credentials are. Listen, there are plenty of Kiruv Rabbis out there. They know a lot. They know a heck of a lot. Can answer their own questions, right? Obviously they have to know where to defer and all that. And there are others, I wouldn't take what they say seriously when it comes to Psak, when it comes to deciding Jewish law, because I don't believe they have the knowledge. I think it's pretty clear they probably don't have the knowledge. But sometimes what they say, you got to be careful. We mentioned earlier, some may say, this is halacha across the board. I beg to differ. That's not true. Right? It's a little bit misleading. Right? So good. They give great mussar. Okay? I don't have an issue with that. They say things very strong, maybe a little bit controversial. Okay? I don't have an issue with that. Doesn't bother me. It's good. Right? If you like it. It can be inspiring. But them as a halachic authority, different issue. That is a totally different issue. You tell me they've learned for many years. They learned under great people and whatever. Okay. They learned how to Pasken and different things. That's fine. That I don't have an issue with. But a lot of people out there don't. They have general knowledge. General knowledge is good. Right? If something's explicit, they can tell them this is what you do in this case, that case, the other case. If not, keep the mouth shut. They can say in general terms, I don't have a problem with that either. They can say in general terms, this is what the issue is. But on an individual case, not necessarily going to ask them. Why wouldn't I ask them? Because I know they're not an authority. And my hunch is, a lot of people, they know a lot, they've learned. Okay. Have they gone through the entire Talmud? I don't think so. Vast majority, I'm going to say they haven't. They don't have time. Busy answering questions, speaking, this, that. They barely have time to learn. I'm not saying they don't learn. Definitely not saying that. And if they do, great. And if they're able to learn 3, 4, 5 hours a day, tremendous. I don't think the vast majority are doing that. My guess. But some who are, venerated, real poskim and, the sizes of Jewish law, okay, they're a different breed. They're a whole different thing. These are not Kiruv rabbis. That's not who they are. They inspire, I agree. But at the same time, someone here says they're a wonderful resource to aid your learning, speak a lot of truth, do a lot of good. You're right. Does not make them a rabbinic authority. And that's something we have to remember. Someone attacked me once and someone asked a question about, a woman hair covering if she's divorced or widowed. Does she have to cover her hair because she was once married? Right? So whatever, I put up an answer there. And someone said, what do you listen to him? He said, he's a YouTube rabbi. I was like, yeah, I'm a YouTube rabbi. Don't listen to me. Do I claim to be one of the top rabbinic authorities in the world? No. There are plenty of things I do know. There are a lot I do know. Plenty of things I don't know. And if not, I'll look it up. I'll go to other people, whatever. Right? But, there's a major difference. And the major difference is how long someone's been learning, what their continual learning is, and what they're doing with it. I remember when I came back to learn the place I'm learning now, a few times a week, people they thought they saw a ghost. I was like, oh, so what'd you do when you were there? So I had a learning session for, I was involved in real estate. So, people knew they couldn't get a hold of me before 11:30 in the morning. So I got up, I prayed, I ate, 8 o'clock, 8:15, I was learning for 2-3 hours. And, so what did you accomplish? What did you do? So I went through tractate brachot, I went through psochim, I went through sukkah, I was in the middle of another tractate while I was there. Finished it when I came back. You have to learn. You got an obligation to learn. You have an person got an obligation to go through things properly. And if you don't, then you're gonna make mistakes. B, you might potentially mislead people. But as my Rebbe said, if you got an opportunity to sit and learn, you sit and learn. You don't want to be one of these, Mickey Mouse rabbis that are out there, they can speak well, but they, the depth they don't have. Now, there are people out there, great speakers. Depth in learning, I don't know. I'm not going to call that out. I don't know. I've never sat down and learned with them, to see. That doesn't mean they can't speak. Doesn't mean they don't have, general knowledge. They can have a lot of general knowledge. The point is, it depends what you ask them. Now, people can be trained in, if you're doing outreach, there are a lot of questions come in that you have to get answers to. You have to know what the answers are. What leniencies you can rely on or not. That's why you need a Rav. You need a Rebbe for that. So that I can understand. You go to somebody like that, they'll tell you. If they don't tell you, they'll get an answer. But other things, a complicated question in Shabbos, would I ask them? No. Because I don't think they would know. Something that's not so complicated, maybe. Doesn't mean they have authoritative knowledge. That's the point. Right? Right? You have to remember they're not an authority. That 100% I would agree. But it depends who. There are people out there, doing outreach, but, learning a lot and this and that. They could very well be. my personal opinion, for whatever it's worth, I don't think the vast majority are. Because the ones being trained, I can tell you, they might have been learning yeshiva for years and years. They take a course for 2-3 years, and then they go out and whatever. Are they an authority? At the age of 26, 27? No. I'm not saying they don't have knowledge. They're not an authority. 10 years later, I don't think they're going to be an authority, unless, depending on what they've done and what they've learned. Because you got to focus. You got to spend many, many years, learning, extracting, going to other rabbinic authorities, asking them questions. Who'd you learn under? Who'd you ask your questions to? Okay. But a lot of these people, they're chasing their tails. They barely have time to learn. And that was ingrained in me, like no tomorrow. You're going to be out there, you got to find time. No matter you're working, you're doing other things, you got to find time. I remember I was teaching in school. I didn't last that long, but when I wasn't teaching whatever, I was preparing other things. I was learning other things, how you stay fresh also. But you got to be learning. How's the person going to get that knowledge if you don't? And in their class, I'm sure people could give like the back of their mind, back of their hand. They don't have to prepare. They know, this point, that point, the other point. Okay. There is what to be said for that. Is that world-class knowledge? Unless they show it, it's not. I'm not degrading it. But the person here makes a very good point. And that is they're not an authority. It depends on what. Depends what the question is. It's a question of life or death. And about medical issues. Is someone going to ask a Kiruv Rabbi that question? Absolutely not. They're going to ask a Torah giant. And there are many other things when it comes to Jewish law they wouldn't ask them because they're not an authority. Now, does that mean they're not an authority in other things? I'm not going to say that. They have knowledge. They may have plenty of knowledge. I'm not degrading that. The question is, are they an authority? I'm talking about kashrus, Shabbos. To be an authority, you have to go through it a number of times. Many, many times. They got to ask questions and this and that. It's whatever. It takes a lot of time. If someone said, someone would ask me and they say, I got this question and, Shabbos. Okay, let's see what it is. Maybe it's an easy question. Maybe it's a difficult question. Whatever. Some things I'll know what to answer. Some things not. You have to know your place. But I would agree. Most people out there doing Jewish outreach, they're not an authority. They do a lot of good work, but they're not an authority. Right? That what I would agree. So he says, you shouldn't just take it as fact. It depends what they say. And I've heard on a few occasions, I'm not saying majority of occasions, but I have heard on a few occasions, someone made a statement, and the statement wasn't true. Totally wasn't true. It was a blanket statement that was misleading. Now again, the majority of things I heard from this person, I didn't have an issue with. I knew their slant, whatever, I didn't have an issue with it. Few things I had an issue with because they misrepresented what it said. Now, how would a person know that? You wouldn't. I knew that because I know what they were talking about. Now, that doesn't bother me as much, only because in this case, it wasn't as common. But if someone makes egregious statements all the time, and says things that misleads and misrepresents, that's a problem. And if this person would do that, then I tell people not to listen to them. Because then that's a problem. Because then you can't tell what they're saying is true or not. Even it doesn't matter what they say and what they quote. That that I would say you got to be very careful. But there are plenty of other people who say things that are so off the wall, it's very easy. I don't have to work that hard. Very easy. Because these things are totally forbidden, totally heretical. So that's a problem. But again, there are nuances over here. Right? So that was pretty much the question, and I see that a bunch of other questions here. So I'm going to stop with that. And see, someone asks, is it possible to convert in Argentina? South America, very hard to convert. I have heard in cases Argentina not a bad place. Yeah, I mean it's possible, definitely possible. But most places in South America you can't convert. I have heard of a few cases in Argentina, but I would say that you'd have to find out, and probably in a lot of cases they don't do conversion in general, but you'd have to find out. It is. I have heard of cases that people did convert it. Is it very common? I don't think so. It's certainly not common in South America, not Central America. I mean, the best place is person wants to convert is either, if you're in that part of the world, either Australia, certain places in Europe, let's say England, kind of hard to convert there. Also, England, France, a few places there, or North America, Canada or America. Those are the best places. Otherwise, South America's a problem. Most of Europe's a problem. It doesn't mean they don't have rabbinical courts there, but it's also a problem there. So you got a handful of places, right? But South America is an issue. Someone asked, I feel sorry for the Ukrainians. I spoke about this. Actually, there's one topic I spoke about on Tanakh Talk. I got such flack for it, he took it down. Basically what I said was that the Ukrainians have a lot of Jewish blood on their hands. The Russians have a lot of Jewish blood on their hands, right? And now if all the Jews get out and they blow themselves up, it doesn't matter. They have plenty of Jewish blood on their hands. I don't think there's any question. Should I feel sorry for them? No. Right? Everyone's got these stickers for the Ukrainians. They if you read things that they did in the Chimanuki, massacre, and that pogrom in the late 1600s, cruelty like you can't imagine what they did to Jews. They have it coming. The Ukrainians, the Russians, 100% have it coming. Whatever happens to them, happens to them. You got to say, hey, but it's their ancestors, doesn't matter. They have it coming. A lot of Jewish blood there. So should we feel sorry for them? I don't. But then someone could say, wow, look at, all of Europe's drenched in blood. No other place is drenched in blood. Okay. So what? Doesn't mean it's a good thing. Doesn't mean, if they're being attacked, obviously it's what God wants over here for whatever reason, that they have it coming. The Russians, they have it coming. Also, no lovers of Jews here. So if they blew themselves up, massacre each other, not a problem. Why? Because plenty of Jewish blood they have in their hands. But what about the Jews that are there? Yeah, that's the problem. That was my main thing I said on Tanakh Talk, and I don't know why. I spoke about worse things, and he said it was just whatever. Yeah, take it down. That's why I was saying that. Someone says Noahide does wrong to other Jews, other non-Jews. Non-Jews don't forgive them. But Noahide go to hell. Depends what he does. If he's liable something for a death penalty, he's not going to go to hell. He's just going to die. Right? He won't have a portion of the world to come. And if the non-Jew doesn't forgive them, I don't know. Does non-Jew have to forgive them? I don't know if he has to forgive them. But if it's something that's forbidden, against the Noahide laws, it's liable for death penalty. Yeah, so he won't go to hell. He'll just die. But the question is, what we're saying over here is that tshuva, repentance, applies to a Jew. It doesn't apply to a non-Jew in general. Even though you say by Ninveh, they have repentance. Repentance by a non-Jew only stops them from getting punished. It doesn't uproot it like it does by a Jew. Therefore, do they have to ask a non-Jew for forgiveness? I don't think so. Right? Repentance doesn't work the same way. That would apply to a Jew. I don't think it applies to a non-Jew. I want to go back to this Ukrainian thing, because one thing I didn't see is that they said, well, these Ukrainians, maybe they're Gilgal, maybe they're reincarnated soul. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They are reincarnated. They're not reincarnated. It's an irrelevant point, right? Whatever, if they are, and that's who they are, they deserve it anyway. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what their soul makeup is. If it's a new soul, they also have it coming. If it's an old soul coming back, they also have it coming. I don't think that matters. Someone asks, does Hashem sometimes override our free will? Sometimes. Right? We see it by Pharaoh. Definitely see that by Pharaoh, that his free will was overturned. Rabbi says in a number of places, got to be careful. Maybe our free will is being taken away. Because sometimes the person may do something or continue to do something and say, I can't change it. And it's so hard. It could be that free will is taken away. Maybe. It can be. Rabbi says it's something we should worry about to a certain extent. That we shouldn't do things by habit and get caught up in different things. That's very true. So he says it could be that, something that's so hard and we do this and that and the other thing. It could very well be that our free will is being taken away. Could happen. Very well could happen. Someone asks, no, how should we spay or neuter a pet? I think it's forbidden. I did a video on Tanakh talk about that, about how that applies to non-Jews. Also, I think it's forbidden. I think you're not allowed to either. That's why I say at least off the cuff. Someone asks, tradition of davening the grave of a tzaddik on Rosh Hashanah. First of all, it's not on Rosh Hashanah. Unless you're in walking distance, but most people are not going to be able to do that because you're not close enough. First of all, you got to pray all day. You're praying all day, so you're not going to have time to go to a righteous person to pray at their grave. The question is, are you allowed to pray at the grave? Is that idolatry? Right? Some people say it's idolatry, but you're not praying to the person. That's the mistake. You're not praying to a person. Right? You're praying in the merit of that person, not the person himself. That's idolatry. Right? Some people say, yeah, send a letter, to the Rabbi and this and that. That's idolatry. That's idolatry. But everyone said, tongue in cheek, he said when Rav Shach died, a blessed memory. And he was Torah giant of the last generation, head of the yeshiva in Ponevezh. And he said, don't worry. He said, soon after he dies, people send him faxes also. That's what he told me. So yeah, that would also be a problem. It'd totally be a problem. That's idolatry. So you're going there, why? For their own merit. The merit of the righteous person. That doesn't mean you're praying to them. And if you are praying to them, that's forbidden. Right? It's through their merit. You're asking, you want to, you're in dire straits for all kinds of different things, whatever it is. So you go there to pray in their merit. You're not praying to them. Right? That's if you're praying to them, that's idolatry. That's exactly what it would be. Someone asks, does the same reason of the Temple Mount apply to the grave of the patriarchs? Why? Because you're going, no. Well, that's, first of all, Jews live there. Even though you tell me they're, I don't know, 500 families, 1,000 families, whatever, and 350,000 Arabs live there. There are Jews that live there. So, okay, there's always an army presence there. True. But you'll say, isn't that a provocation? The Arabs might say so, but they have a right to live there. They certainly have a right to live there. That's not as a provocation of the Temple Mount. Temple Mount, nobody, Jews don't go up there. So if you're going up there, you're showing something. You're showing Kol Chotzim V'yadi, the power of my hands. We have the power. It's mine. They know it's ours. That's not the issue. Right? But here they live there. Going to, let's say, the grave of Yosef Atzadik. Now it's a dangerous place to go. You have to go with the police, with the army escort and all that. Are they going to riot? They're not going to riot because of that. They may attack you on the way. They may definitely attack you on the way. Not so smart, I would say. But they may attack you on the way. But, they're not going to riot and start killing people because you went to that tomb or the tomb of the patriarchs. Definitely not the same thing. It's not the same thing. First of all, they're not going to live there. Second of all, they're just going to pray. They're going to pray there, right, or whatever, right? Not the same thing. Someone asked, why was God angry with King David when he counted Israelites? Because you're not allowed to count. He thought it was permissible for different reasons. We don't count when a person, when you're counting for a minion, for 10 men, right? So you don't say 1, 2, 3, 4. The person would say not 1, not 2. Or you'd say, the blessing over bread is 10 words. Baruch ata Hashem, Elokeinu melech olam, bo tilecha min haaretz. 10. So they'll say Baruch ata Hashem, Elokeinu, whatever. They won't say the blessing, obviously. They won't say God's name, but it has 10 words. So therefore, you're not counting. right? You're not allowed to count. And there's the whole thing here about a census. If you have to take a census or not, we don't do that either because, the importance of not counting Jews. We don't count Jews in general. Whatever, there's a lot more to speak about that. But for whatever reason, he himself thought that was okay. That in this case, it was okay. But the reality is God, it wasn't. And since it wasn't, he got punished. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm gonna stop here. Whatever, I'll pick up this next question on Thursday, hopefully. Otherwise, I'm gonna sign out. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Rabbi Chaim Coffman or at Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. You can send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Wishing everyone a good beginning of the day. And